12 o'clock on your Tuesday afternoon. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and the casually late, as always, Terry Ford. I hear him outside the studio. He'll be jumping in momentarily if he doesn't continue talking to Elijah and Dave outside, that is. Welcome in. Plenty to get to today. Gamecock baseball in action tonight. Final midweek game of the year. Taking on Winthrop up the road in Rock Hill on what's going to be a very busy week, short week at that, as they turn right around and then have a tough test in Georgia coming to town in just 2 days' time. So plenty to talk about with that. Coach Kingston on, as he is each and every Monday, with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show yesterday. But the news of the day, is it news? That's kind of the debate I've been having all morning long, is what Coach Beamer said about Lenore Sellers yesterday. And we'll get to the cut in just a moment. But Terry, as he shows up casually late, I don't know if I quantify this as news necessarily, because it's something that we really kind of already knew.
Yeah, it's not like you went, oh my God, there's a quarterback controversy or a quarterback battle, and Lenore Sellers won. Oh my God. No, it's not really. No, it's not like breaking news. It's more like, yeah, we kind of knew that. It's just you had to make it official. It's like the official announcement that at the end of spring, Lenore Sellers is the starting quarterback right now.
Yes.
But it wasn't like that you were on the edge of your seat trying to figure out who was going to get the nod, right?
Yeah.
Because we kind of knew.
It would have been bigger news. And again, this is at a welcome home event last night. We'll get to the cut in a minute. If he said something along the lines of, we're still not sure yet.
Or
then
this
it's
one.
like, why aren't you sure?
Or how about this? After evaluating the spring game, we decided that Robbie Ashford is the starting quarterback going into the summer.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, what happened there? Because, and look, we weren't at every single practice. Media only got a small window to view. We saw the spring game. That's vanilla. Take it with a grain of salt. But even with that, we saw a clear difference between Lenore Sellers and Robbie Ashford for what they were able to do in the time they were on the field.
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't have to be like a football genius to go, that guy is better than that guy,
right,
from what I just watched. And I think you and I were talking about earlier this morning. You can go to a game. You don't have to be a professional scout. You can go to a game, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, whatever, volleyball. And if you know something about the game, you can watch a few minutes and see who's clearly better than others. Now, you might not be able to break it down like a scout or a general manager or something, but your eye says, that person, much better than that person.
Yes.
And I think even if you watched the spring game, and no, it's not all the practices, we get it. But watching the spring game, there was a clear difference between Robbie Ashford and Lenore Sellers. Now, that's not saying Robbie Ashford was terrible. That's not what we're saying. We're saying when you watch Ashford play the position and Sellers, you saw a difference in the two.
Well, and we know with Ashford, and he's been very honest about this coming in, he knew he needed to develop. He said, hey, I wasn't getting it at Auburn. That's why I came here. Now, again, he comes here hoping that he can be the guy that ends up being the starting quarterback, but he clearly has some room to improve, some room to continue to learn and grow that, again, from what we saw in the spring, not quite there yet. Doesn't mean he can't get there in the summer or through fall camp, and maybe we're having a different conversation leading up to the Old Dominion game at the end of August, but as of right now, nothing is telling you that he's closed that gap.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say is no one's saying he can't get better, because obviously he can.
Sure.
And he might have gotten better since he's been here.
Yeah,
we weren't at the practices. We don't know.
Very athletic, certainly has the skill set that could translate, but it's not there yet. And what that timeline to getting there is, we don't know. Ashford has a couple years of eligibility, so maybe it's a long game. Maybe he thinks, maybe next year I can be the starting quarterback or something along those lines. Who knows? But as of right now, he's not there.
Good job continuing to talk as I spun the camera around so the live stream folks could see you.
Thank you. Hello.
I looked over and I went, empty chair. Well, we got to fix that.
You know, we have this thing that I like to call the fire drill between shows, where there's about 8 things that have to get done, and sometimes turning the camera doesn't show up on the top of the list yet.
I say this to people, and I mean it. It's like, look, we try not to look. Just you can't tell people everything.
No.
First of all, no one cares, and second of all, you don't need to know how all the sausage is made.
Sure. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Exactly. But we're very honest about the live stream.
Sure.
Look, we wanted to go the next level in a platform with a live stream here. We don't have a video director. There's nobody with the last name Spielberg here. There's no little dude locked in a closet who's hitting all the little switcher buttons. It's us, all of us. It's a village trying to do the video stream, and sometimes we screw it up because none of us are video directors. We're all just a bunch of schlubs who are trying to do video so the audience, the people that want to watch a video stream, get a chance to watch a video stream.
See, I decided when I was in college that TV was not my thing, and I decided to pursue radio. So I've steered away from cameras.
Had the TV guy put his arm around me and say, hey, Timmy, Terry, Tommy, you ever thought about radio? Just saying. So, we just try to do this like all of us. And so, really, if you're watching it, you can also be entertained by how many times we screw it up. Because we're going to screw it up. Even as we go along and we've gotten better, we still screw it up. So it was good as you kept talking. It'd been fun to watch the video stream. As you keep talking, all of a sudden one of the cameras just started whirling around really slow. And all of a sudden, there you are.
There I am.
All right, so let's get the Lenora Sellers cut in here real quick. Or Shane Beamer basically announcing what we figured, but Shane making it official for now. Remember, the key is coming out of the spring. Go for it.
I mean, I'll tell you guys what I told Lenoris and all the quarterbacks coming out of spring practice. Coming out of spring practice, Lenoris is our starting quarterback. But just like all of our positions, that we will continue to compete at all positions. So I told Robbie Ashford the moment I say that at a Gamecock Club event, the headline is going to be Beamer names Lenoris Sellers starting quarterback. Lenoris is the starting quarterback coming out of spring. And now, like I told Lenoris and like I told Robbie did a great job during spring practice along with our other quarterbacks. Lenoris did a great job, and I expect Lenoris to continue to compete and continue to earn that position as well. You guys know from being here, I mean, going into 2022, nobody thought that Nicky Mamori and DQ Smith were going to be starting safeties because we had two seniors that they were behind, and we got into week 2 and they became starters, so it's the same thing. We don't all of a sudden name someone, Debo Williams, as our starting linebacker coming out of spring practice, but he needs to have a great summer to continue to be the starting linebacker. So that's where we are. And I had those conversations with those guys the Monday after the spring game.
And so basically, I guess Shane Beamer will tell you this with every position. These are guys who are all starters coming out of the spring. Our depth chart, even though we didn't do one, we have a depth chart, and they're all the starters coming out of the spring.
Right.
Now, more of them, if you probably would have a percentage, right, of them being the starter, the chance of them being a starter. Like, for an example, you look at the football team, the percentage of DQ Smith and Nick Amenwari being starters as safety is about 100%.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Or 99.999999.
Sure.
Now, to me, again, if you put a percentage of Lenoris Sellers being the starting quarterback, I won't go that high.
Yeah.
But I would say this, it's in the 90s.
It is, and there's a lot of positions on this team that have so many new faces, whether that be from the high school ranks or from the transfer portal ranks, that it looks drastically different than it did a year ago, where you can't definitively say that right now. Wide receiver's another spot. Still trying to figure out what the offensive line's going to look at, where you can't, outright say, well, yeah, we're 100% sure this is what it's going to be like. But again, we can assume that it's likely going to be Lenoris Sellers unless things just go drastically the other way over the course of summer. And as Chris said, if he just decides to take the summer off, I'm good. I'll see you guys August 31st. Then we got a problem. But as of right now, I don't see anything that would suggest he's going to lose the job. Now, if he goes out there and plays and throws 6 interceptions and fumbles the ball every time he tries to carry it, oh, yeah, a change will be made. But until then, it's his job to lose.
His license plate isn't going to say starter after the spring.
No, it's not.
No. So, we all believe unless something drastically changes, Lenoris Sellers will be the starting quarterback of this football team when they teed up against Old Dominion.
Right.
But Shane Beamer, again, at the welcome home, saying, look, I'll tell you what I told the guys. Told them first, I'll tell you. Lenoris Sellers is the starting quarterback right now, coming out of the spring. So we'll have some more cuts from Shane at the welcome home in Florence. Also, Mark Kingston was on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah. You missed any of that? We have some cuts from Mark Kingston as South Carolina moving forward. Tonight, right here on the game in Columbia and also in Myrtle Beach, 5:45 pregame, 6 o'clock first pitch, a quote-unquote Tyler road game, wink, wink, against Winthrop.
Yeah, hop, skip, and the jump up the road.
Yeah, so that is tonight. You can hear it right here on the game in Columbia and also on our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. So we will pop back in some more from Shane Beamer. Welcome home in Florence. I thought one cut that was kind of interesting is talking about recruiting, high school recruiting, transfer portal, kind of the balance of it and what's more important and what he's looking at moving forward, because they're both a thing, obviously, that aren't going away. All right, so we'll get to that coming up. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're just hanging out here until about 3, and then we'll let Jay and Elijah take over here on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We are rolling until 3 o'clock here on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. Shane Beamer, welcome home in Florence. Shane, last night, among the many things he addressed, was talking about, and we'll cut 12 here, Tyler, will the transfer portal ever take precedent over high school recruiting? We'll give you our thoughts in a second, but here's what Shane says about high school recruiting and working the transfer portal.
I always want to start with high school recruiting, always. I believe that's how you build your roster, and to me the best teams are the ones that you've brought players in as freshmen, you develop them, and then they're there for their third, fourth, fifth year in the program. You look at some of those guys you're referring to, Rashawn Lee, Ja'Kai Moore, Luke Doty, Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, TJ Sanders is going into his fourth year in the program. Nicky Manwari, DQ, their third. O'Donnell Fortune, I guess, his fourth. So I talk about it at these events. We've got, I think, 12 players that have been here since 2020, which is really pretty cool, in the portal era. So I always want to start with high school recruiting. I'd love to be able to sign 25 guys a year. You keep them for 4 years and you develop your roster that way. Those guys get to be juniors and seniors. They're older guys and they've been around your program for a while. I don't know if that's as sustainable here as maybe it is at other schools because of, frankly, the size of the state. There's not as many SEC football players coming out of South Carolina every single year than there are Texas, California, Florida, those type places. So you've got to be creative. I don't ever want to say, okay, we're going to sign 20 portal guys a year and that's how we're going to build our roster. I just think it's hard to build a team year to year and sustain it year to year doing that. But we certainly want to be able to have the bulk of our class come from the high school ranks and then being able to supplement it year to year from the portal, whether it be with a Spencer Rattler or the guys at Nick Gargiulo and some of the great guys that we've brought in that we've had success with that we've brought in from the transfer portal. So we'll always utilize it. It's when those guys fit what we're about on and off the field and they're looking for what we're offering from an opportunity standpoint. But high school recruiting, we haven't put any less importance on that. Our coaches are out recruiting right now and are attacking it, harder than we ever have.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Shane's right. Not that he cares if I agree with him or not, but Shane's right. You build a program still through high school recruiting.
Sure.
To me, in a perfect world, the high school in a perfect world, you have the state of Texas or the state of California or whatever, Florida, where you got 1 billion recruits. You can just stay in your state and recruit there.
Right.
But again, South Carolina's a smaller state, population-wise. So you've got to go, like Shane's got connections in the DMV. They're doing a lot of recruiting in the DMV, a lot of recruiting in Georgia. There's a ton of high school talent. Florida's there. You just, you look around North Carolina, your border states. I mean, you're always recruiting outside of the state just because the population base isn't what it is in other states.
Right.
But it's still high school football, man. You got to go get high school kids. That lays the foundation of the program. In a perfect world, your high school kids are your rock, and you're supplementing with transfer portal players to fill holes and needs.
I don't think you can definitively rely on the transfer portal to give you everything year in, year out. Now, let's look at South Carolina just over the past couple of years. You had the great portal class from 2 years ago where you brought in Spencer Rattler, you brought in Juice Wells, and, hey, those guys had high levels of production when they were here. See, a season ago, Mario Anderson, he was fine. The running game as a whole struggled. Had a couple of offensive linemen that didn't end up panning out the way you wanted them to. Trey Knox, Josh Simon, good solid tight ends, but I think we're expecting this transfer portal class to be even better. So it's so inconsistent year in, year out. And to a degree, high school recruiting can be the same way. But, I don't think you can look at this in like a Colorado way of like, well, we're just going to go out and get 40 guys out of the portal every single year, and that'll be our team. It's going to look, 90% different year in, year out. You can't expect long-term success doing it that way.
No. What Deion's doing is because Deion doesn't plan to be in Colorado. Deion's dying for one good year, so Deion can peace out somewhere else.
Yeah, probably.
So Deion's just like foundation. We don't do any foundations here. We just want to win more games than we lose so I can go get a better job. We talk about Lane Kiffin. That's more of the model to look at.
Yeah.
At Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin has had a good amount of success through the transfer portal. Jackson Dart is starting quarterback. He's had other players come through the portal and have done well at Ole Miss. But, Judkins, the running back, who, by the way, ironically went in the transfer portal to Ohio State, was a 3-star freshman that nobody thought about.
Yep.
And boom, he popped on the scene, and look what he did in his 2 years at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, by the way, if you look at the On3 industry recruiting rankings, you want to give it a shot where Ole Miss is?
Oh, they're in the top 10.
They are 20th in 2024.
Okay.
Top 20 recruiting class. So, Lane isn't just sitting there,
Sure.
making it rain with NIL money for recruits. Probably also making it rain NIL money for high school kids coming in too. But so, and the flip side of that is, I'm going to go find where the Colorado Buffaloes are.
You're gonna be scrolling.
I was going to say, you might want to play some music while I'm doing this, because I'm already through 100 and they're nowhere to be seen. Colorado State, they're at 79. So yeah, I might find Deion in here before it's over with, in Colorado.
Deion might be gone by the time you get there.
So true. I've lost my patience. I might have missed them now because I've totally lost my patience.
Well, hey, whatever you do, don't tweet at him about his bad recruiting, because he'll fire back at you.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, they are way low in recruiting rankings.
And again, you mentioned it, that he doesn't have the desire to do that. Deion's not going to be at Colorado for 8 to 10 years. He's not trying to build a foundation of a program that's going to, he's going to be around a long time for. Like you said, he's going to prove that he can win at the Power 5 level, get them to a bowl game at 7-6 or whatever it may be, and to go to the NFL. Like, that is his end goal. He's not he's not putting his roots down in Boulder, Colorado.
No, he's not. He's a short timer in Boulder. I would be very surprised, my man, if you and I were having this conversation in 2 years and Deion Sanders is still at Colorado. It only means he hasn't won yet.
Yeah.
That'd be it.
And also, none of his sons would still be there at that point in time. I don't see it.
Well, he's going with his sons, right?
He says no, but...
So look, he's been very entertaining. It's been compelling to watch. They owned the month of September last year. It was cool. But once the rubber met the road, what happened?
They had this thing called conference games.
Yes.
And once they started playing those,
yes.
They
were a bug splatter on the windshield the rest of the season. And
yes.
It's not to say that Deion isn't going to have a winning season at Colorado to shoot himself somewhere else. They were a better team last year than the year before when they were abysmal.
Yeah.
So it's just the idea. What we're trying to say is what Deion is doing is not a sustainable model of building a college football program. It's just for Deion to have that season he needs to go somewhere else.
Sure.
And the people of Colorado will love it because that's the best Colorado football has been in a long time.
That's the most relevant they've been since, early 90s?
Even last year with a losing record.
Yeah.
They were selling Buffs gear and people were going to games. The Rock is on the sidelines, for the love of God. Game day's there. The Fox Sports show is there, the pregame show. Colorado got more love last year than they got in the last 20 years in college football.
Pretty much.
They'll take it.
Yeah.
I don't care. And if Deion rolls off to somewhere else in the next couple of years, they'll go, yeah, that's really good 3-4 years, wasn't it? Uh-huh. So, but it's just not a sustainable way to build a program. So what we're saying is you still lay the foundation with high school recruiting.
Right. And because, look, Beamer's going to be here for a while. He's not outside of going 0-12 this year, which I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Beamer's at risk of losing his job anytime soon. I don't think he's using this as a stepping stone to go coach at Ohio State or something in a couple years. Like, Beamer's settled down here in Columbia, and he's going to be here a while.
Yeah, and so you lay down the foundation of this program, and you tweak in transfer portal guys like you said, Spencer Rattler, Juice Wells had a really nice season, and you can do that all over the place. Like, it feels like quarterback, and I know that South Carolina's going the traditional route with someone you recruit and you develop them, and then they take over. But if you look around, look at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. What'd you see? A lot of transfer portal quarterbacks.
Yep.
Right? Look at the NFL draft. What are you seeing? Transfer portal quarterbacks. So we get this weird idea that the portal's the way to go. Now, it might be the way to go to get a quarterback, because I think this thing is going to split with, there are going to be coaches that want veteran quarterbacks who can come in and learn their system, even if for 1 year they don't care.
Yeah.
And then there are going to be guys that still want to go the old-fashioned way to recruit and develop their own. Now, Oregon's interesting. Dylan Gabriel will most likely be the starter.
Yep.
But Dante Moore, 5-star kid from UCLA who transferred, is sitting in the wings. That's an interesting combination. You're not going to see that very often.
No.
Because if most 5-star kids are going to leave.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I forget what class was he this past year, Dante Moore?
Yeah, he was a freshman at UCLA this past year.
I mean, Gabriel's played college football for 17 years. He's got 1 year of eligibility
I believe
left.
Gabriel
So
just turned 40.
it's like, all right, sit behind him for 1 year, then it's your show after that. Like, those are the situations. But when you have these guys that come in like a year apart, like Spencer Rattler and Caleb Williams, that's where you create these rifts because it's like, well, they both can't start.
Right. By the way, I finally found Colorado 57th.
Yeah, there you go.
So it took me a while. I got there. So I think Shane's correct. You lay your foundation with high school recruiting and you fill weaknesses or fill depth also with the transfer portal.
Right.
We'll get some more Shane from his welcome home in Florence. Also, we will shift gears, though. Who's the starting pitcher tonight? If you don't know, we had the news broke here yesterday afternoon. We'll get into the starting pitcher tonight for South Carolina if you don't know yet, and we'll get to some other comments from Mark Kingston on the postgame show with Jay and Elijah yesterday. That's coming up. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. We're rolling here on the game. Look, you're a guy. It's just time to start taking care of yourself. Dude, trust me. Nobody knows more than I do. It's time to take care of yourself. You're getting older. All of a sudden, you're not sleeping as good. You're not as strong at the gym. You don't bounce back well from exercise. You got to call 911 to get you out of bed because you can't move. You just don't have a drive in life. Bedroom, living room, bathroom, wherever. You just don't feel, you don't have that same kick you used to have. Maybe it could be something as simple as low testosterone. One way to find out. 803-875-MENS, Men's Clinic of South Carolina. You call, set up a free confidential consultation with Dr. Dan and the staff. If they do think it could be low T, they'll do some lab work. If it comes back low testosterone, they will put you, and this is the best part, they put you on a program specifically designed for you, not designed by Frank Thomas. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. All right, let's see what we're talking about. Sponsored by Love Chevy here on the Halftime Show is right now Gamecock Baseball. Mark Kingston on with Jay and Elijah yesterday, and this might have been the first time Mark Kingston's officially done this, Tyler.
Possibly.
Throwing Jay a little love, because Jay always asks, because you have to, who's starting midweek.
Yeah.
And Kingston always, either he'll joke around with him, mess with him, or say, we haven't figured that out yet, or he'll say, Johnny Bullpen, or whatever. Mark Kingston actually gave Jay the name of the start. Broke news yesterday on the postgame show. Hit it.
I'll go ahead. And I don't think I've ever told you who the starting pitcher is going to be for the midweek game, but I'll break that precedent. Just for you today, Jay, we're going to go with pitcher, and it'll probably be a game where we go Johnny Holstaff, but Tyler Pitzer will be the first one to pitch tomorrow night.
So Tyler Pitzer will be the opener, so to speak, tonight.
Yeah, and look, like you said, it's Johnny Holstaff, as most midweek games are, especially since you lost Eddie Copper, who could give you 3 or 4-ish innings. But Pitzer will go out there, pitch an inning or two tonight, get everybody through. You'd ideally love to run Rule Winthrop again, so you're not using as many arms, have everybody fresh for what is a short week, because you're playing Georgia 48 hours later on Thursday.
Yeah, those Thursday games are so clunky, especially when your midweek's Tuesday like this. So Pitzer, interesting numbers. A pitcher on the season has appeared in 14 games, 4 starts, openers, through the season. 31 innings pitched, giving up 31 hits. Has struck out 44, but here's the big issue with Tyler Pitzer is 16 walks in 31 innings.
Mm-hmm.
Just got the control's got to get better. Opposing hitters are batting .254, and if you look at this team, some of the other opponent batting average, that's a little high compared to what some others are giving up. But that's not what's killing Tyler Pitzer. It's the walks, and when you're walking basically 5.5 per 9 innings. That's not good. So a pitcher can, start finding home plate a little better, then obviously the performance will tick up because he's striking out enough guys per 9.
He is.
He's missing bats.
And he's a guy that, obviously coming as a freshman, was originally a bullpen guy, worked his way into the weekend rotation. We forget about that, but he started that Vanderbilt series, had a great outing, and subsequently started against Alabama and A&M, which those 2 games didn't go all that great for him, and has since been back in the bullpen. Did start against Citadel a couple of weeks ago as well. So he's been mainly a bullpen guy, but has the potential to be a starter, and is one of the guys you're probably looking at as the future in the rotation down the road. And we've seen the glimpses of him this season. So again, he's not going to be asked to go out there and throw 5-6 innings tonight, an inning or two, hopefully keep your pitch count low so you're ready for however they decide to use you this weekend.
Some freshmen have taken the ball this year. It's been interesting. I mean, they're the ones that are, developing for the future. But we've seen some freshmen go out there this year, and even though if the performances haven't been consistently wow, you've seen ability and potential where you hope next year after that, whatever, you got some guys who are taking the mound and giving you something on a consistent basis.
And that's kind of, these midweek games are so weird because at the end of the day, it doesn't change a whole lot about your postseason projections or anything like that. You obviously want to win, want to keep the momentum going, but for a lot of it, it is almost kind of setting the table for the future, so to speak. Getting these guys their innings, getting these guys out there that could be your starters next year, and kind of seeing how they do in those starting roles. And again, it's really about keeping everybody healthy, keeping your pitch counts low, and have everybody on deck for what's going to be a very tough series this weekend against Georgia.
All right, so the lineup obviously was changed, and it was kind of pushed because of the injury to Will Tippett. And then Matthew LeCroy moved over to short. Gavin Costas has gone to third. Ethan Petrie came in from the outfield to play first base. So you've had a lot of these moving parts, and really the push of it was the injury to Will Tippett. Here's Coach Kingston on with Jay and Elijah yesterday talking about Will Tippett and giving an injury update on the shortstop.
He's getting close. And when he's 100%, then obviously we will have some decisions to make on what we do, because if he goes in, then obviously somebody has to come out. We're not allowed to play 10 players. So if he does go in, then we'll have to take somebody out. And the challenge there is that the 9 players that have been playing right now have created a pretty darn good chemistry in terms of scoring runs. And so we'll have to weigh the pros and the cons and the positives and the negatives of what we think, and it may be with a certain guy on the mound who may get a lot of ground balls. That's the game we decide to play our best infield defense. Again, there's a million factors that go into every decision we make, so we'll do our due diligence and try to do what we think is best to win a game on any given day. But he is getting close to being ready to play, and so obviously that just further strengthens the kind of team we can be.
Remember, Tippett started hitting before the injury.
And that's what makes this interesting, because if he hadn't stepped up his game at the plate right before the injury, you'd almost be reluctant to say, I'm just going to roll with what we're doing. Yeah, is Tippett a better defender in the field at shortstop than maybe LeCroy is? Mm-hmm. Sure, but I don't know if that's enough to outweigh the positives there. But man, he really was hitting the ball. Once he finally stopped being a switch guy, focused on hitting out of the right hand of the box, things were clicking. Now, what does that look like coming back from an injury? We don't know, but you're at least curious, like, well, can he pick back up where he left off to give us solid production at the plate, in addition to be a really good infielder?
I'm one of these, if it ain't broke, don't break it guy. And I feel like as long as you're playing as well as you're playing and offensively you're doing what you're doing since you changed the lineup. And I know defensively there were finally some things during the weekend against Missouri. I get it. But you still won 2 out of 3. This lineup has been producing for you more than it hasn't.
Sure.
You feel like you've gotten some kind of swerve going here. I might, if I'm Kingston, I might pull Will Tippett in and go, you still look hurt to me. No, Coach, I'm fine. Yeah, still give him more time.
Sure.
Want to make sure you're good to go, and
Now, if things start trending the other way, you immediately have your 10th guy to, supplant, whether it be LeCroy, Casas, however you want to end up doing it. But yeah, it's tough to mess with what's been working these past couple of weeks.
And you can always do this is, you say you got a 3-game series coming up, and I'm just making up whatever. Let's say game 2, there's a lefty.
Yeah.
And you start Will Tippett. You get Tippett some love, play him at short. He's just hitting right-handed now, so let him go up against a lefty because, again, obviously that's, advantage right-handed hitter usually. So maybe you spot him in places where he would have the best opportunity to succeed at the plate. And you do still keep him fresh. You get him in the field, but you're not going back to what you did. You're just trying to ingrain him back in the rotation, so to speak. You can also do something like that possibly. But you're right. If you stop hitting, or if defensively this thing really starts hurting you, then you go back to him. Because he was hitting before the injury.
He was, and like Kingston said, because a lot of what he does well is the fielding aspect of it, and the hitting was coming along. So a guy like Dylan Eskew, who produces a lot of ground balls, if he's on the mound, maybe you put him out there at shortstop knowing he's going to get a little bit more action out there.
Right.
And that positive of having him in the field might outweigh, having LeCroy out there or something along those lines. So there's decisions to be made. So maybe you don't give him the full tilt for the entire series. Maybe you kind of feel it out and just kind of go situationally.
I'll tell you one thing you do. You go to 1075thegame.com and you look at that media reel, and as soon as it lands on the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway, what should you do, Tyler?
You should click on it and enter, because this pot is growing and time is running out.
It's $1,175, and there's 7 games left, right?
Yes.
Okay, 7 times 25 is 175.
Yes. So 1,175.
So 1175 and 175 more is what, 1350?
Yeah. You know what? This it's going to be like the bottom or the top of the 9th on the road at Tennessee in game number 3, where the max amount of this pot can be won. That's where it's going to happen.
And someone's going to go yard with the bases loaded.
Exactly.
It's that simple. You go, you click on the giveaway when you see it flip, you fill out the little form, you click submit, and if a Gamecock does finally hit a grand slam, the next weekday morning at 7:30, the early game will pick a winner. But your name can't get picked if you don't register. Again, 1075thegame.com, Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. $1,175. It has passed Lawyer Lisa's special teams contest.
Yeah, it had. They got up to 1,000. I feel like our reaction to this might be even more than the Lawyer Lisa thing was.
Just say it, man.
Because the Lawyer Lisa thing, like, there was no teasing to it as much because they never really came close to scoring that touchdown, so they blocked the punt against Vanderbilt. This is like, bases loaded. all right, here comes Petrie to the plate or Messina, like, here it comes, and then nothing happens. Like, we've been teased too much.
So go to 1075thegame.com and register to possibly win from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. Firehouse Sub text the hour at 803-404-6100 is coming up next. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head rolling till 3 on the game. Time to get our Firehouse sub text to the hour at 803-446-6100. What do you got there, Tyler?
Yeah, our guy Steven weighs in and says, I thought Terry's last name was Spielberg in reference to our, inadequacies with our video equipment here.
I wish it was, man. If I had some of that money,
I don't think you'd be doing this.
no, I wouldn't be hanging out here. Yeah, have that Spielberg last name.
I think that'd get you a few places in Hollywood.
Think.
even if if I had that last name and I had no relation to Steven Spielberg whatsoever, I'd still milk that for all that it's
Oh,
worth.
what I was going to say, you play it.
Yeah. Oh, he's
To the hilt.
He's my uncle.
Yeah, Uncle Steven.
Oh, really? He never talks about you. He doesn't like to brag.
Yeah, he's modest.
He's a humble guy.
He's very private about the family.
Yeah. Did you go to NYU? Yeah.
All right,
Totally.
film school.
I was in that class. Yeah, we learned about cameras and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Can you come direct my movie? Yeah. Totally.
Absolutely.
Worst movie of the year.
You're a Spielberg? Are you sure?
Well, it sounds kind of like Spielberg. It's Ford. It's close.
Spielberg, Ford. Yeah.
People get it confused all the
That
time.
happened. The younger version of me. I was at this bar, 1:30 in the morning. My buddies are running around. I'm sitting there by myself, just chilling. Girl walks up and goes, Jimmy, you remember me from UMBC? We were in a psych class together. Looked at her. She was kind of cute. Looked at the time. Yeah, I remember that.
You instantly became Jimmy.
I was Jimmy for 6 months. She called the house. I said to my dad, I go, Dad, if somebody calls asking for Jimmy, just give me the phone. He gets the phone. He come around the corner. He go, hey, Jimmy, the phone's for you, Jimmy. He'd hand me the phone. He'd just walk away shaking his head. I was 19.
I get it.
I was, hey.
As long as it works.
It was like, would the adult version of me do that?
Maybe.
Maybe. I was like 19. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll be Jimmy. What the heck? You're
And see,
cute.
When you do that, you don't think of the scenario where the truth gets found out.
Well, I'll tell you, thank God. She was a manager at a TGI Fridays.
Okay.
Oh, assistant manager. I'm sorry. No, she was a manager. And she was a couple years older than me. She was a manager. And she got offered a gig. She was from Boston.
Sure.
And she got offered an assistant gig in the Boston area, in the suburbs.
Okay.
And she wanted to go back home, and the assistant gig was going to pay her more than the manager gig in Baltimore. So she took off. And look, don't get me wrong, she was really cool, but I don't know how much longer I could have been Jimmy.
I was going to say Jimmy was heartbroken. Terry was fine.
Terry was like, Jimmy cried uncontrollably. And Terry went, okay, who am I going to be next time?
Yeah. Wiping the sweat off after that one.
Yeah, I did take her out around my friends a couple times. I remember, guys, I'm Jimmy. They would call me Jimmy.
Now, see, that's how you get stuck with a lifelong nickname.
Oh, every now and then one of my buddies will send me a text, hey, Jimmy. Anyway.
Those are good friends.
Oh, those are my, yep. The things you do at 19.
And that's the thing is they don't question it like, all right, you're Jimmy now.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. It's automatic. It's automatic. My one of my kids, my second oldest, got in trouble at a mall, and the mall security pulled him into the mall office and asked his name.
Uh-huh.
And he said his last name was Swanson
Okay.
because he wanted to get away. He didn't want to get in trouble. And they finally got his real name. And they called and they told me he used his fake name. To this day, I still every now and then, hey, Swanson, what's up?
I mean, I get it. It's clever.
Hey, he hung in with it for a while, too. I'll give him props. He made him sweat for about an hour until he finally cracked and gave his real name.
That's good.
Yeah, there's a part of me going, I'm so proud. Boy's got some Baltimore in him after all. Anyway. All right, so thank you very much. We appreciate the texting, like always, 803-404-6200. No one here is named Spielberg, unfortunately. We wish.
You should have seen us trying to move those wires around earlier.
You should have saw it. If you're on the live stream, I think you could have,
Probably
right?
did.
If you're on the live stream, you're like, why does that one camera keep going? going out.
Well, and also you like your head was right in front of your camera while you're doing
that's
that.
not
so They
good.
got a nice view.
Shot of the
what's going
dome.
on up top.
They got a shot of the dome. That's not
right.
that might scar you for life or make you go into a seizure.
Trying to get people to watch us, not to turn us off.
Exactly. It's like, wow, he ain't kidding. Ain't a whole lot of hair left on that guy's head. Oh, God. We'll get back to Firehouse Up Text the hour. Next hour at 803-404-6100. Football coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Like always, sponsored by our buds Atlantic Windows and Doors. We'll get some more Shane Beamer and his welcome home in Florence. You've probably heard by now, if you listen to this station or if you've been checking social media, Shane announced that, to no one's surprise, Lenora Sellers is the starting quarterback coming out of the spring going into summer camp. So we'll talk more about that. Also, I think Shane talking about, addressing the needs in the portal. We'll get to that coming up in the next segment as well. And also, this is interesting. Getting multiple guys from the same school through the portal. We'll get into all that coming up on the halftime show on the game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We are rolling up until 3 on the game. Football, 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 football. 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Shane Beamer at the Welcome Home in Florence last night. We had been talking about the fact that Lenore Sellers, Shane told the crowd, is the starting quarterback coming out of the spring. Obviously, there's still competition. Shane talked about that. But right now, to the surprise of no one who saw the spring game or heard about what went on at practice, I mean, you know, the offensive player of the spring was?
Lenore Sellers.
Yes. So,
probably a pretty good indication.
Yes, Lenore's played well in the spring and played well in the spring game, and right now is the starting quarterback. And you see all the potential. You see the high ceiling. Obviously, he's not done it in a regular season game as a starter in the SEC or period, but the potential of Lenore Sellers, there's a high bar.
Yeah.
High bar. So also Shane at the Welcome Home in Florence, Tyler. Let's get to Shane talking about addressing team needs in the portal, cut 8.
I feel good. I feel good. Coming out of spring practice, I think I talked about it publicly. There were some positions that depth-wise we weren't where we wanted to be just from a scholarship number standpoint. Offensive line was one of them. Not saying that we were not good on the offensive line, but just to be able to practice, having a certain number of guys on scholarship, we weren't there from a lineman standpoint. At receiver, we had some areas to address as well, and that was what we went into the portal. Those two positions were essentially primary needs and our primary, portal targets for us. I feel like we've addressed it well. Still not done. Obviously, the portal's closed, but if you're in the portal, you can still take visits as well. So that's still going on with us and other colleges as well. So we'll see how it finishes in the end, but I like where we are right now and like where we're headed also.
So, yeah, I mean, it felt like that offensive line, you had a lot of depth. So you're looking for some more numbers, and you did add in the portal there, not only for depth, but, the guys they brought in could compete for starting gigs. I mean, it's not like, we just brought dudes in, we needed bodies, because we had 2 empty chairs. But the wide receiver position, it felt like that was more of a need.
Sure.
And you just saw that with 2 guys come in recently through the portal. That's going to be the interesting competition in the summer. We feel like Larvidan, if you did a depth chart, Gage Larvidan would probably be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
And Gage Larvidan would probably be a starter. And I'm liking Gage Larvidan. The others, would it be Brown, who, by the way, was in here today on Garnet Trust?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be Jared Brown, who transferred in from Coastal Carolina? Mazio Bennett had some nice moments, the true freshman. How about Stevenson, a holdover from last year? Nick Harbor wasn't around the spring. How does Nick Harbor factor in coming up in summer camp? The kid from Louisville had a nice play or 2 in the spring game.
He was somebody that and you're talking about Amari Huggins,
right.
Bruce. He didn't really get in until later in the game. Which again, there's a lot of guys in that room, so you can only divvy up, so many spots at a time. But he didn't get in until much later in the game than I thought he would, and I think he may have had a catch or 2. But if I were to guess, maybe he's a step behind those other guys as far as potential being in that starting. And I agree with you. I think Larvidan's the one that we've heard his name used consistently, even when not asked about specific guys, come up. So it seems like he's kind of leading the way. He and Sellers seem to have good chemistry going on there, and he would likely kind of be your leader at this point.
And we heard Brown's name a couple times. Larvidan, far and away, we heard the most.
Right.
And, we'll see. I mean, again, the kid from Louisville, you saw some quicks. He had that catch. It was the second half, I believe he got in the game in the second half.
Yeah.
And you could see athletic ability with him and quickness. And I agree, he's behind right now. Probably not as polished a receiver or has the experience in getting targets like a Larvidan or a Brown. I feel like those 2 guys out of the transfer portal right now are kind of ahead. And we'll see how the rest of it pieces itself together.
Right.
Because there's a lot of guys in that wide receiver room. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think, look, yes, you wanted more depth by bringing in 2 more, but I also think, not to say you weren't happy, But I'm saying you left spring probably with still a big question mark over the wide receiver position. Is that fair?
I think so, but it's almost kind of like having too much of a good thing because it's better to have so many guys in the room and not really sure how you're going to divvy up those reps than what like you had a running back a season ago. It's like, well, we're kind of short some guys, so we're hopefully going to piece this thing together when the season rolls around. You have tons of depth in that room, and there will emerge a collection of 4 to 5 guys that end up being your main wide receivers when the season rolls around. We just don't know what that looks like yet.
Yeah, and Campbell, the big 6'4" receiver that came in from Nevada, he's intriguing because Nevada couldn't throw the ball to save their life last year.
No, the fact that he got 2 touchdowns a season ago, 2 of 6 they had through the air, by the way, is nothing short of remarkable.
The fact he had any numbers that were anything you could look at is impressive with Campbell.
And that's what's interesting about a guy like that is we don't know how much he's truly held back by playing in an inept offense that he could get in here with Dow Loggins and Lenore Sellers, and he could have a Leggett type of year for all we know because he just hasn't had that opportunity to work with that type of offensive coordinator, that type of offensive talent around him to get the most out of what he's bringing to the table.
You hit it on the head. That's why I think he's so intriguing because we really don't know how much playing in that awful pass offense last year at Nevada held him back as a receiver and what kind of skill set he has. We don't know. That's going to be interesting. So he's a guy, he's like a wild card to me. And obviously Harbor's the ultimate wild card, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he is. We see all the ability. You see the athletic skill set, the speed, all that. And you also see where he's raw. I mean, even last year when he played, late in the year, he made some plays, but also you could see how raw he was as a receiver. And you go, man, if this guy gets it, he's going to be really good. But he's still at a very raw state in his development.
Sure.
But you get him on the field because the athletic ability alone could pop you some big plays.
The upside for him is so large. And, yes, you don't want to have to wait. And again, now that he's finishing up with track stuff, can get in there in the summer, get in there in the fall, we'll see how many steps forward he can make. And, we talked to Jared Brown about it earlier, and he said, hey, when he wasn't doing track stuff and he was around, he was, engaging with us, and we were, getting up to speed with him on things. So he's doing the best that he can, splitting between 2 sports, which we knew he was going to do. And we'll see how big of a step he takes forward when the fall rolls around.
Yeah, this isn't like a surprise. I mean, this is one of the reasons he came to South Carolina was he was getting getting what he wanted was a legit opportunity to run track, not the sure, we'll let you run track. Sure.
Well,
maybe
it's so because football is king everywhere, pretty much, to where even if you're a 2-sport athlete, because we see guys that play baseball, we see guys that play basketball, but it's your main priority, and nothing's going to, unseat that in most cases. This is a rare instance where this is a dude that has aspirations of running the Olympics. And that's a very real thing that could happen in the next couple of years, that he wants to be on the path for that and play football as well. So you do have to, at times, take a backseat to the track stuff. It's not interfering with football season, so that's all fine and good. But, it does beg the question of, okay, how much development and improvement is going to make from year 1 to year 2? And when we have nothing to go off of from the spring, we're just going to be sitting here guessing until we actually see it on the field.
Yeah, and so that's also the wild card aspect of what will happen with Harbor. And we'll find out in the summer. And I go back to Amari Huggins-Bruce real quick. The little bit you saw in the spring game, there's some athletic ability, quick twitchy there with that guy.
Right.
His numbers don't pop really at Louisville at all, especially compared to Brown or Larvidan. Didn't get as many targets, had some issues with drops. But there's some twitchy with that guy.
There is.
He's only 170 pounds, which isn't much more than me, but there was when you saw him a little bit in that second half, you're like, don't know if that's going to translate to a starter, but that might be a guy that's got a little something going there that, if developed or used to his skill set or strength, you might get some plays out of him. I don't know.
I think about it for somebody like Amirian Brown.
Yeah.
And, he was never going to be your 1 or 2 wide receiver, but you put him in the slot and you can get him to get some separation, get him some yards after the catch, use that speed to his ability, and you got this tool that you can use on offense when needed. And again, when you're looking at Huggins Bruce, Larvadain, and Jared Brown, all kind of being around that similar skill set and size. Which one of those guys emerges that way, we don't know, but I would imagine one of them's got to be that kind of guy when it's all said and done, and to be able to use in those type of scenarios.
It's a very interesting room. We'll see how it plays out. Other thing from Shane real quick, at the Welcome Home in Florence, he was talking about how you get multiple guys from the same school. Remember, South Carolina's got a couple guys from Pitt that have shown up here. How do you get, or the explanation of getting multiple guys from the same school out of the portal? Cut 14, Tyler.
Great question. I wouldn't say necessarily more, but maybe more immediate. I mean, you look at high school prospects that we've, brought in, whether it be, I can't name some of them, but somebody that the Kilgores. Jalen Kilgore comes in, great article, by the way. Jalen Kilgore comes in and has a really good first-year experience with us. His brother, Gerald, because of what Jalen has told him, because of what Jalen's parents experienced, now want Gerald to be a part of that program. Absolutely. But then you also, that happens, and I hope it's happening with the high school recruitment as well, where when Lenora Sellers comes back here to Florence for the month of May and he's around the high school working out, he's telling the other players at South Florence High School what a great experience he's having in Columbia, that these guys are who they say they are. They're real, they're genuine, they don't give you a bunch of BS in recruiting, and how much fun he's having. So I would hope that's happening, and I think it is. But certainly in the portal, without a doubt. I don't whether I can comment on him or not. Hypothetically, there may be a Florida State receiver that would be joining our program. Well, Gilbert Edmond told him about, here's the experience you had in Tallahassee, good or bad, but here's what it's like in Columbia. He and Gilbert are from the same area in Florida, so that certainly helps. We have 4 players on our team that came from Pittsburgh last season. It wasn't like we went and said, let's get all 4 of these guys. It all kind of just happened. Two of them were from the state of South Carolina, and at least from my dealings with them during the process, it was really, they were all individual situations. It wasn't, hey, we're going to get DeAndre Jules and he's really good buddies with Bengali Kamara and we're going to get them both. It really kind of just happened. But I would imagine that whoever came first on a visit, Jules told Bengali what a good experience was and things like that. So I think so. I think you hear that more, and I get it. Guys that, players on our own team, somebody goes in the portal and immediately I'll get a link to their 247 or Rivals or On3 profile or whatever it is, or a screenshot of who they are. Hey, coach, this is my boy. He just went in the portal. He's a dog. He can play. We need to get him, that type stuff. So they're like our best recruiters. So, yeah, to answer your question, I would say so. It happens. I don't know if it's more than high school recruiting, but hopefully with the transfer portal, a guy comes in January, has an awesome experience, or has a great first week, whatever it might be, and is telling other guys of his, yeah, come on. So I'm all for it if it means they want to join our program.
Word of mouth is a thing, Tyler.
That's right. You
get it out there that you got something good going on, other people want to be around it. So, absolutely. All right, we'll pop back in here. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll get back to some more Shane Beamer this hour and his thoughts from the Welcome Home in Florence. Started this yesterday. Saturday Down South did these ceilings for every team in the SEC. We'll circle back and I'll throw a couple at you and we'll talk about, I didn't get to finish the whole list, but we'll come back and kind of revisit the ones we did talk about and finish it up. Interesting where they put different teams' win ceilings for the season. So we have that coming up. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors right here on The Game. Football. 1 o'clock hour sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. Glad you could be hanging. Okay, let's say you haven't figured out what you want to get for mom. Or maybe you forgot. Uh-oh. Well, 107.5 The Game, we'll help you. We got your back. We'll give you a chance to send mom to Atlanta's Evergreen Lakeside Resort and also a family 4-pack of passes to Stone Mountain Park. We're doing this one through our Facebook page. So go to the 107.5 The Game Facebook page to qualify. All the instructions are there. How cool would mom look at it like Evergreen Lakeside Resort, family 4-pack of passes to Stone Mountain Park? Let's say you've got brothers and sisters. You want to go a step ahead of them and have mom like you more?
It's a pretty good one.
It's a good way to get mom to like you more.
I say, as somebody that spent many summer days at Stone Mountain Park, it's a pretty neat place.
So, yeah, again, go to 107.5 The Game's Facebook page to qualify. All the instructions are there. So, your chance to, have mom like you better than the rest of the kids.
And that's why we all do this, right?
And we always do this just so we can help you one up.
See, the Mother's Day gifts, it's an arms race.
Sure,
right?
it is. Absolutely.
Because, all right, what'd you get her? Well, I'm going to get something better than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, I knew my older brother was such a one of those that
Good choice.
I was sitting there going, I'm going to the Rolodex of the words I could use not to get us fined.
Not many.
I couldn't think of one. He was that. Since he was one of those, I knew I'd win every year. It was easy. Very simple.
Didn't have to put much effort into it.
No, low bar buried underground. So, again, go to 107.5 The Game's Facebook page to qualify. All right, so I thought this was kind of interesting. I was scamming around Saturday Down South yesterday, and they had an interesting post on the ceilings of each team in the SEC. South Carolina's ceiling, according to the article, and it was written, I forget his name. Let me get it back here real quick. It was written by Connor O'Gary. Connor has South Carolina's ceiling at 7-5 because the schedule's a bear. It's a schedule with 6 matchups against teams who won at least 9 games in 2023. And does that typically equate? Not all the time, but still.
Sure.
It's a tough schedule. That does not include a matchup with Kentucky or a matchup with Texas A&M, a team that South Carolina has one win against since they became annual rivals. That's tough. That's why their over-under is 5.5. So going for 7 would mean that Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders are a dynamic 1-2 punch, and the Gamecocks greatly improve in the trenches on both sides of the ball, which we've talked about that. It's got to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, some Beamer ball can help you get to that 7-win regular season. I get that one.
Sure.
7-5, 8-4 would be the highest, and that's being that totally glass half full because the schedule's tough. I said this yesterday. If South Carolina gets back to a bowl game to get you back in the right direction after you're 5-7, that's a good year.
Yeah,
Fair?
and people don't want to hear that, especially in the off season, because your projections and hopes are going to be loftier and higher. Hey, 8-9 wins, something around there. And I'm not saying that's not possible, but yeah, the bar should be getting back to a bowl game at the bare minimum because, again, you were kind of ahead of schedule the first couple of years. Took a step back last year. God, you stop Florida on 4th down, you're going to a bowl. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about all of this. Not to say everybody was doing backflips at 6-6 and go to a bowl game, but here's what. Ready? Here's a new narrative. Follow me on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? After that 8-win year, 6, it's kind of disappointing. But when you look at all the injuries this team had on the offensive line and at wide receiver and the lack of running game and the trouble they had covering slot receivers, the fact they ended up in a bowl game, that's good.
Yep.
You stop Florida, that's a narrative.
You don't give up that touchdown at the beginning of the game against Clemson on offense. Who knows?
And maybe you find a way to grind that puppy out.
Yeah.
And you're 6-6 is a different narrative. Well, let's just go to that one real quick. Yeah, 6 wins wasn't 8, and you had all those injuries on the offensive line and receiver, and you did get back to a bowl game, and you know what you did again? You beat bleeping Clemson.
That's right. That goes a long way.
Yep. So you weren't far off on getting the 6-6. It would have got you to a bowl game. And then if you do like you did the Mayo Bowl and you win the bowl game, then guess what you have, Tyler? A 7-win season.
That's right. You take it. And that's the weird thing about and really this can apply to so many teams in today's college football because so much of the roster has changed. As we talked about the transfer portal, not knowing, who's going to be the breakout guy at wide receiver, as well as a couple other positions. Like, this team could be way better than we're giving it credit for because so much of our perception of teams is baked into what you did the season before. What have you done for me lately? And we can only go off of what we see on the field. And last time they were on the field against Clemson, they struggled on offense and couldn't get the job done.
Right.
And again, God, how many starters are you replacing from that game alone?
Yeah.
Over half your offense.
You're going to have a new starting quarterback, new starting running back, new starting wide receivers.
Yeah.
Probably a couple new pieces on the offensive line in some way, shape, or form.
At least one tight end.
One tight end. So the offense is going to have, besides offensive line where there'll be some stability, you're going to have a total makeover on the offense in skill position.
We don't know how good that team's going to be, and we're not going to know until August rolls around. And we could get 3 weeks into the season and be like, oh, wait a minute. This team's on fire. Like, this team could go win 9-10 games. But where we sit right now, we have to set that bar at getting to a bowl game and hoping for better. But we'll see.
We'll see. All right, there are some of these others real quick we didn't get to yesterday. Vanderbilt 4-8 ceiling. That's probably 3 wins too high.
Oh, yeah. I will give credit. They've found a way to scrunch some funds together because, they had lost their entire team back in December.
Everybody hit the portal.
I didn't know if they were going to have to shut down football in Nashville or not. Fortunately, that's not the case, but it's never easy for Vanderbilt, right?
No.
And it didn't get any easier when you added in 2 college football playoff caliber programs in Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. Like, they're just going to continue falling further and further down the pecking order. And, I don't know what Vanderbilt's going to look like this year, but my expectations for them are not high.
Yeah, they can beat Alcorn State, Georgia State, and Ball State, right?
Yeah, that's the run of states. 2 of them aren't actually states.
Right. You mean Ball State in a state?
Yeah, neither is
Alcorn isn't either? All right, I'll take your word for it.
I think Georgia's a state, last I checked.
I'm gonna during the break, I'm gonna Wikipedia because Wikipedia is never wrong.
Of course
Vandy, I'll give you something about Vandy really quick. Entering 2024, Vandy is seeking to end a 10-game losing streak versus Power 4 opponents. They're replacing both coordinators, lost 25 players in the transfer portal, stay within single digits of an SEC opponent for the first time since Florida in 2022. All those things are true. A&M is interesting. They give Texas A&M an 8-win ceiling. Their biggest games are at home: Texas, LSU, Missouri, Notre Dame. And no one they play away from home had a winning record in 23. That's almost as easy as you can get in today's SEC with a schedule.
It is. And here's the thing about A&M. They weren't awful. They just weren't what Jimbo Fisher was supposed to have them at a year number 5, whatever year he was in before he got fired. Like, they weren't a bottom feeder program in the SEC. Like, they were fine, but not championship level like Jimbo should have had them at this point.
And you're paying for championship level.
Exactly. So their climb potentially back to the top is not that far.
And we forget this because he got hurt, but Connor Weidman was playing really well.
He was.
Before the injury, really well.
It was that Auburn game early on in the season, and then, Max Johnson didn't end up being the quarterback he thought he was going to be, and just the wheels kind of came off from there.
Texas 12-0 ceiling. Nah, I'm not going there. Play Georgia. That game's in Austin. You got Oklahoma. You have to go to A&M, and they are going to be foaming from the mouth.
Oh, my God.
That cult is going to be crazy for that game.
That'll be this on Saturday while we're obviously watching the Carolina-Clemson game. That's going to be the second screen.
Oh, no doubt.
You got to keep an eye on that game.
Absolutely.
Things are going to get interesting.
It's going to get crazy.
Is that in College Station?
Yes.
Okay, even better.
Those people.
Oh, yeah.
That is going to be
12 years. 11 or 13 years. No, 13 years.
They can't wait for this.
They can't wait.
They are. The cheer squad is going to go upside down, that yell squad. They're going to be so intimidating. We'll continue on with this coming up. Tennessee, we haven't gotten to yet. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Missouri. So we'll hit those on the way back. Halftime show, football on the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We'll hit some more ceilings in the SEC next on the halftime show. We're rolling football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the game, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Asia Wilson coming to town on Saturday with the Vegas Aces against the Puerto Rican national team. We'll have tickets this week. Be listening for your chance to win tickets. I believe we're going to start that tomorrow.
Yes, that is correct.
Be set for that here on the game.
Which, by the way, Las Vegas Aces is one of my favorite team names. Like, you understood the assignment. You know what you're doing. Perfect name.
Nailed it. Really nailed it.
Nailed it.
That was not overthinking.
No, not at all.
Very simple. We're Vegas. It's not tough.
What do people come to Vegas to do?
Exactly. That one, I'm with you. That's one of the, out of sport, in sports, that's a top 5 name.
That's up there with Seattle Kraken.
Oh, I love the Seattle.
Incredible name.
I'm not a merch guy.
Sure.
I'm just not. I don't wear, like you've noticed, you don't see me running around in that kind of stuff typically. Yeah. Team gear, I would wear Kraken gear.
I would too.
I love the nickname. And if someone's going, what the hell's a Kraken? Go on the internet.
Yeah.
Check out a Kraken. That is a phenomenal name. Because that thing alone is intimidating.
Oh, without a doubt.
You throw octopus on the ice and catfish. Could you think you'd get a Kraken? Throw an actual Kraken on the ice?
Would a Kraken fit on the ice?
No, it would not get in the building.
I mean, those things are
it's
monsters.
Large, man. I don't think a Kraken would fit in the building. Just say it. But, yeah, that's a cool name. That's my favorite name in sports, Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, that's hard to beat.
All right, so we've been looking at the ceilings for SEC teams thanks to our buddies at Saturday Down South. Again, the post put up by Connor O'Gara, I believe. O'Gara. I'm sorry, Connor. Connor O'Gara. And Tennessee, next on the list. They have Tennessee ceiling 10-2.
Interesting.
I don't know about that. I mean, they got to go to Oklahoma.
I'm going to mess his name up. There's high expectations
Nico.
for Nico. I'm a Levea. I believe I said that right.
I think you got it right. I am a Levea.
And I get that. However, first year's a start in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
I mean,
I'm not going to gauge at what he did against Iowa in a bowl game.
Right.
As the true metric for how he's going to fare in the SEC.
Now, remember, a couple years ago, a Clemson quarterback started a bowl game, and everybody went gaga over what Klubnik did in the bowl game and how'd it go last year.
It didn't.
No, it didn't. All right, so if you look at this schedule, they have Oklahoma and Norman. They get Bama and Knoxville. They got to travel to Athens. So those are 3 right there that are going to be – you're going to lose 2 of those. I hate to say it. You're going to lose 2 of those, maybe all 3.
And the weird thing to say, the Alabama's kind of the wild card there. Like, I don't know how good Alabama's going to be this year. Maybe this is where things turn and Tennessee starts winning the 3rd Saturday in October more often than not. Like, I don't know. Alabama could go out there and be 14-1, 15-0 or something like that.
We don't know yet.
We just don't know.
We really don't. Also, on that schedule, besides those 3 games, you can navigate it. You're going on the road to Arkansas. I'm feeling bad for Uncle Sam. That's a game you could post a W. You don't go on the road that much. You've got 4 true road games and a neutral site game against NC State. Look, NC State, I'll say this about the Wolfpack. When it's over, you whether you win or lose, you got to sit in the tub for a while.
You're going to feel it.
NC State is that kind of team.
Hey, Clemson learned that lesson last year.
Yep. NC State can bite you.
They're going to scratch and claw. I feel like Tennessee should be able to come out on top in that game, but you're going to be a little worse for wear afterward.
And it's early season. Nico might not have his legs under him yet.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. All right, also the ceiling, Ole Miss 11-1. Look, we all think they're going to be really, really good.
I mean, they're in my playoff right now.
I mean, you add our boy Princely from Florida, Walter Nolan from A&M for the defense. Obviously, Logan Diggs, Juice is there now. Jackson Dart is back for his 10th year at Ole Miss?
Something like that.
We think Ole Miss is going to be really good. I mean, they've won double-digit games 2 of the last 3 years. Should be 3 straight years, by the way. Remember, they were like 8-9-1 and went 2 years ago down the stretch.
Right.
We feel like they're going to be good. And if you look at the schedule really quick, I mean, they go on the road to Wake. That should be a win. They'll be here against the Gamecocks. We'll see how that plays out. They go to LSU. That'll be tough. They go to Arkansas. They go to Florida. They get Georgia at home. They get Oklahoma in Oxford as well. It's a schedule that, if they are as good as we think they are, that ceiling they might hit. They might actually hit their head on that ceiling, possibly.
I'd say Georgia's probably the game you don't win there.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Georgia's reloaded once again this year and could go undefeated again.
Yeah, by the way, their ceiling is undefeated.
Their ceiling's national championship.
Yes, exactly.
Likely the favorite going into the season. But look, here's the thing about Ole Miss. What they never had a 10-win season before. Like, you blew expectations out of the water this past season. You brought in everybody from the transfer portal. Like, Lane Kiffin's living good down there in Oxford. And again, now that you've expanded the playoffs and 9 wins, more likely than not, is going to get you in the SEC. I mean, you're a team that could realistically go 5 out of the next 7 years.
Here's the next step for Ole Miss. Now you're being looked at as legit.
Yes.
You're not a cute story anymore. You're not, the underdog anymore in some ways. You're looked at as a legit college football playoff contender and a legit contender in a very stacked SEC. How are you going to handle that now? And if you're Lane Kiffin, guess what, Lane? You're looked at as a dude that's got to do something big this year.
Well, I think he's now looked at as like a guy that's actually staying at Ole Miss now.
Yeah.
Because for the past couple of off seasons, who's going to go to Auburn?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Alabama job just came open. What's going to happen? Like, if he has not left for one of those jobs, I don't think he's leaving for any others. Like, he's going to be at Ole Miss for a while. What are you going to do with it?
He's one of the, top 12 paid coaches in college football.
Exactly. Like, he has not truly set his roots down anywhere in college football outside of Southern Cal, where he got fired, in his career. Like, this is the first time he's doing that. Now what do you do with it?
I feel like the older, smarter version of him goes, I got a pretty good gig here at the Grove.
Yeah. Why would you? You are a king to those people right now.
Oklahoma 9-3 ceiling. That schedule's a bear, man.
It is. Now they took a sizable jump from year 1 to year 2 under Venables. That I
won 10 games.
I wasn't even expecting them to get that much better.
Lost the bowl game to Arizona, but again, we can't. Bowl games you take with a.
No,
bowl game. You lose players. Gabriel is gone. Whatever.
Right. Now, similar to Tennessee. Jackson Arnold seems like a dude.
We'll see.
We'll see.
So, and I'll say this: Venables, that was a big jump from year 1 to year 2. I agree with you. Now, earn Venables a few more years of leeway, right?
It got people, and look, Oklahoma's one of those programs that has high expectations. You go 6-6 in back-to-back years. What's going on here? Like, it got people off of his neck for a while.
Yeah. And the last one, Missouri 10-2. Let's slow our roll. It was a really nice year for the king of 6-6.
Exactly. Nobody saw it coming. Is it a flash in the pan, or is this sustainable success? Who knows?
I mean, you still got a lot of offensive production and firepower coming back. Defensively, you lost your coordinator. I'm looking at the schedule right now real quick. Okay. You should be 3-4. You should start the year 4-0 going to College Station. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vandy. You're going to go to College Station.
Fighting Pete Limbos, man.
Yeah, gotta love him. Go get him, Pete. He'll have a bunch of fake kicks. After A&M, you go to UMass. So really, you 5-1 at worst.
Wait, you go to UMass?
Yeah, who signed that up? It's kind of bizarre. Weird. You actually didn't just write a check to get out of that game either. It's strange.
Wait, we scheduled that as a road game?
Yeah.
There's going to be 5 people there.
I mean, the schedule gets tougher near the end of it. I don't think that. I think 9. I just don't see Eli's crew winning double digits again. I could be wrong. Maybe it's because Eli gets on everybody's nerves. We stand on business here, Tyler. All right, we'll come back in here. Firehouse Subs, text the hour 803-404-6100. And also some more Shane from Welcome Home Florence. That's next on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the game. Time to check the old text line at 803-404-6100 with our Firehouse sub text of the hour. What do you got there, Tyler Head?
Yeah, so had a couple people, including Tommy, weighing in on the text line. We haven't gotten a chance to get to this yet, but this news coming out just a little while ago. Trent Noah, the four-star basketball prospect that was committed to South Carolina, has been released from his NLI, National Letter of Intent, to reopen his commitment or reopen his recruitment. So he, at the time, is not going to be coming to South Carolina now.
Okay, I see it. Look at the perimeter.
Sure.
Look at the perimeter with the Gamecocks. You add Cam Scott. You added a point guard. You have Jacoby Wright. You also have Miles Studi. You have a pretty crowded perimeter with this basketball team. Plus, Morris he's going to probably get some run at backup point guard.
Sure.
Noah's a guy. He's a 3-point shooting perimeter guy who's working on the other aspects of his game. Right.
Right.
I can see him going, might want to go somewhere else where I get more run.
Yeah, and he's a state of Kentucky kid. In opening his recruitment back up, Kentucky, obviously a player here. Louisville, Tennessee, also in the mix. So, would you have loved to have had him here?
Sure.
Certainly. Again, you feel like you've got good pieces, and here's an opportunity to fill that spot with somebody else. Who that is, we don't know. Do you go back to the portal? Do you go get another high school guy? Who knows? But, you don't love losing a guy like this, but I don't think we're sounding alarm bells necessarily.
No, not at all. Now, if you wouldn't have gotten Cam and you lose Noah, you might go,
maybe a little worried.
But, who knows how it's going to play out, but Cam is obviously a higher-rated recruit than Noah. But Noah, remember, you've changed the guard in Kentucky.
Yep.
You've got, Mark Pope there as the head coach. By the way, they shot more threes than twos at BYU last year, right?
Oh, yeah. They're gunning for it.
Mark Pope loves to shoot the three, which is funny because he was a big when he played.
Right.
So Kentucky, if they're going to be running the same type of offense at BYU, ran that 5 out, and again, not to get too basketball dorky, that was fun to watch. So if you're going to run that type of offense, you need shooters. And this kid's a shooter. So we'll see. And now Kentucky is going to look at players in state they probably wouldn't have looked at under Cal. Because, look, let's be fair. Cal got beat up a ton over not recruiting the state. But to be honest, besides Reed Shepherd, there hadn't been a lot in that state that are top 50 or top 30 recruits. It's interesting, Tyler, for a state that loves ball.
Yeah, they don't produce a ton of talent.
They don't produce a lot of high-level players.
Yeah.
They just don't. Not to say they're not fundamentally sound or whatever. They just aren't high-level recruits in the world of college basketball.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily Calipari's fault that the local high schools aren't growing talent on trees necessarily. And when you have the rapport that he has, you're able to pull guys from all over the country. So you don't have to look in your backyard. But, this would be a big get for them within the state, a guy that was sought out by a lot of big programs. And, again, it sucks for South Carolina. But, again, I think we still feel pretty good about where we're at.
Yeah, and again, I see why the kid did it. And, you never like to see somebody pull out of a recruitment or their letter of intent or whatever. But how much playing time was he going to get this year?
Maybe not a lot.
Yeah, that's the part, and you look at it from the kid's perspective. It's like, look, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to get a chance to play.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the way South Carolina was set up, he wasn't going to get a chance to play that much, most likely in year one. Now, year two might have been different, and you can say, well, hey, you can be a little patient there, man. Come in, grow a bit, develop, learn, then you'll get an opportunity in year two, maybe. But he was like, I want to go somewhere where I got a better chance of getting more playing time. Remember, Pat Kelsey's the new head coach at Louisville from College of Charleston. So you've got a new head coach there, and they're rebuilding from the studs.
Right.
Because Kenny Payne, oh, my God. Whew. That was awful.
I think he set Louisville basketball back about 60 years.
That's almost... It's sort of like what they did at North Carolina. The Matt Doherty era has been wiped from the record books at North Carolina. The Kenny Payne era will not exist at Louisville.
Yeah, they'll wipe it clean.
Wow. So I can see why our guy's doing it. So, again, the news, in case someone missed it, Go for it. Officially, the news of
Trent Noah.
yes, Trent Noah. I almost called him Trevor Noah, who also left.
I almost did too.
Who also left his gig. So Trent Noah released from his letter of intent with South Carolina, and we'll see where he lands next. Totally understand it. Totally get it. And so he'll figure out opening up his recruitment where he's going to go. Get a little Shane Beamer in, a little Mark Kingston in, and Tyler did a really interesting interview we're going to rack up at 2:15 as well. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head here on the game. As it's at 2 o'clock, time for what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Again, you buy any stuff from Gamecock Traditions, a portion of that money will go to the Garnet Trust. So,
We know how important that is.
yes, just a little bit these days. All right, so what's trending at 2, we just hit it with Trent Noah getting out of his letter of intent to play for Lamont Paris in South Carolina. Most likely will end up either at Kentucky or Louisville. That's the feeling. Tennessee is also in the mix, but at Kentucky or Louisville. I mean, he played at Harlan County High School in Kentucky. So we'll see where that goes. He knocked down 43% of his threes. Team won a state title. So,
Yep.
but we just went over it. Wasn't going to get a whole lot of playing time, most likely, this upcoming season. Maybe looking for somewhere where he gets some more run. All right, so that just popped here a little while ago. Also, Shane Beamer, welcome home, Florence. Last night we played you the cut where Shane basically says, coming out of the spring, Lenore Sellers is the starting quarterback. But the battle's not over with Robbie Ashford. And it's not. Lenore Sellers right now is a starter. Any of the eye test tells you he's a starter. But Shane will continue on, obviously, with the competition. Also, Shane, talking about when the portal was closing and, time's ticking, everything's near the end, and in the hours up leading to the portal closing, here's Shane Beamer talking about what he was doing, which is kind of interesting, Tyler, what he was doing. He was hanging out with other coaches. Here's Shane explaining it.
It was intense, but it wasn't like we had all these conversations going up until 11:59 p.m. I told my wife over that weekend, I'm like, it's eerily quiet, like too quiet in some ways, but it was great. And actually, when everything closed, or during the last couple of days, was when I was in Georgia for that golf event with some other head coaches from across the country. So I think we were all in the same boat. We're all sitting here in a hotel ballroom raising money for charity, but we're all worried about the same things. And even some of that, I wonder if he's trying to take one of my guys and all that as well. So we were all together. A lot of us were on that trip, and it was good. A lot of that, I think, was done. Credit our players. A lot of that I won't say was done, but we had some great healthy conversations back in January when guys decided to come back for another year. We had, you guys know, I told you when I saw some of y'all in Columbia that, and I talked about it after the game, the number of individual meetings I had. So I had some healthy conversations with 100, however many players, 10 players after spring practice, and we addressed some things. But it was great. It's credit to the players in our program and what we're doing as a program. It wasn't like I had hard conversations where guys were making demands and things like that. Like always, we were honest with people about where they stood, and our guys believe in what we're doing. And they've been overall, the team's been a really hungry, driven group since January, and spring practice was just, the culmination of one part of it. Now they're eager to attack the summer, and I see that with a lot of guys that are still in Columbia right now, and they don't have to be. They're just, they're in the building and working out and eager to get going for summer school next month. Yeah.
And that is a cool thing when you hear a bunch of guys are still here working out. Now, if they want to go, I mean, they have,
Sure.
opportunity now to take off and go do stuff. You don't hold anything against them if the guy wants to go home, but there are dudes staying and working. And it's always a cool thing when, guys are staying and they're grinding, especially coming off of 5 and 7 when you're obviously disappointed in how everything went. The other part of it, I think it's kind of funny. They're all sitting, all these coaches are together and they're all giving each other the stink eye, like, you trying to steal my guys while you're here?
I imagine it's almost like an even bigger game of poker.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm looking at his guy, but I don't want him to know that. So I'm just going to keep a straight face, going to look down at my golf clubs or look at my drink on the table and just not try and give off any kind of indication that something's going on.
How uncomfortable is it if you do get one of their guys? Let's say that you're playing golf in his foursome.
Ooh. And you got to be out there with him all day.
All day.
You're trying to stay as far away from him as possible.
Yes.
Like when he's teeing off, you're by the golf cart and vice versa.
And you just look at him every now and then and go, sorry, man.
Anytime he tries to come up and ask you a question, you like immediately, oh, hey, I got to get my ball from over there or something like that.
Yeah, that would be an uncomfortable 18 holes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's Shane again, the welcome home in Florence. He was there last night talking about Lenore Sellers right now as a starting quarterback coming out of the spring. All right, Coach Kingston, as we switch over to Carolina baseball, Coach Kingston was on yesterday with Jay and Elijah, his weekly Monday get-together with the postgame show. I thought this was kind of an interesting comment as Mark Kingston was talking about the starting rotation. 5 innings out of your 3 starters in the Missouri series. You still won 2 out of 3, but your rotation did scuffle. Here's Mark Kingston talking about the rotation.
Well, in Dylan's defense, Dylan was dealing with a little bit of arm discomfort yesterday. So I think we need to make sure we keep that in context. That was not just a performance where Dylan just didn't get the job done. He was dealing with a little bit of a sore arm yesterday, and that's what I attribute the outing to. I'd say the previous month, Dylan Esky was, if not our best, one of our best pitchers. He shut out Kentucky last week. So I think we need to keep that under consideration, and I'm sure the public wasn't even aware of that until just now. I think he's going to be fine for the weekend, but it's something we're evaluating. And, but the bigger picture is, we've got guys that have had some really high moments and then some not so high moments. And that's the challenge throughout a long baseball season, is to try to make the best decisions on who is trending in the right direction, whose role is best for them. Obviously, Ty Good has been one of our best pitchers as well, if not our best pitcher. And statistics tell us that he's really, really good coming out of the bullpen. Now, what we've done is basically made him a secondary starting pitcher where somebody opens the game and goes as far as they can. But then once Ty comes in, we know he's going to give us starting pitcher length. Because the stats say coming out of the bullpen, he's just been dominant. And, we have different theories for why that is. My theory is that he's such a unique pitcher that if you have a week to prepare for him on a Friday, then hitters are going to be much more ready for all that he does. But when he comes in out of the bullpen, if you've already prepared for Roman Kimball or whoever opened that game, and now here comes Ty, that's a really tough challenge for hitters. So, we're continuing to evaluate everything, where we need to pitch guys, when we need to pitch guys, how much we need to pitch guys, because some years you have dominant starters. You have a Clark Schmidt, you have a Michael Roth, you know what you're getting. Other years you have guys that are a little bit more challenged, where you've got to fit the pieces together. And I would say this year is one of those years. We just got to continue to figure out the best way to piece things together, and we will continue to evaluate.
I thought the explanation of Ty Good was excellent. The numbers say come out of the bullpen, Good's dominant.
Mm-hmm.
You start Roman Kimball, and this is one of the reasons why you see openers in Major League Baseball, even though the purist in me hates the opener.
Right.
Hate it. I understand it. Teams are preparing for Roman Kimball, and then here comes Ty Good. So you have to pick your poison. Do you say we know what they are doing, so we're going to prepare for Ty Good, because we know Ty Good's a guy given length, and we'll just deal with Roman Kimball as we go along? And if you do that and Roman Kimball is dominant, maybe Kimball keeps going on you.
Sure.
Or do you prepare for Roman Kimball and you deal with Ty Good? It's I could see it being a huge pain for an opposing team to prepare for. And Good's numbers overall, 2.68 ERA, a little bit over a base runner an inning, only giving up 27 hits and 47 2/3 with 56 strikeouts. Coach is right. Ty Good's been dominant, especially coming out of the pen. And it's almost like, again, you're picking your poison there, which way you want to go if you're the opposing team and you're going to figure out the Kimball Good, which way you going with your preparation.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, and one of those things that, again, you'd like to see a little bit more length out of Roman Kimball to get a couple extra innings, but you kind of have that safety net and Good coming in whenever you ask him to do that. And again, the hope would be this weekend against Georgia, assuming they're going with the same type of lineup in the rotation, that Kimball can get you a couple more innings, and then Good can carry you most of the way through the rest of that game. That way you're saving the rest of your arms for the back half of the weekend, assuming that Eli Jones can give you a good 4 or 5 innings on this time Friday night in the second game.
And, of course, tonight, everything gets rolling, 5:45 pregame. up in Rock Hill versus Winthrop. You can hear it right here on the game in Columbia and also the game in Myrtle Beach. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on the game and the halftime show. A couple things happened in the NBA last night. I like Jamal Murray. I'm a Jamal Murray guy. I do. I like Jamal Murray, the player. I think he's an underrated player. But what he did last night was unacceptable.
Yeah.
Look, man, I know you're getting your doors blown off by the T-Wolves. I get it's frustrating. Where the heck you get a hot water bottle to begin with is kind of interesting. But to throw a hot water bottle on the court while dudes are playing, that is a suspension type offense to me. He only would have got a technical foul last night if they would have saw it.
Sure.
And the explanation from the officials was he just threw it on the court. He wasn't throwing it at anybody.
But still, you step on that, roll an ankle, bang your
Or
knee.
worse.
And you're talking, this is a playoff series.
Yes.
So you're talking about you could seriously injure somebody that has a completely, huge outcome on how this series is decided at the end of the day.
So what if you throw that thing on the floor and no one sees it, and Anthony Edwards goes to the rack with the ball, and on his way to the basket to jump, he steps on it, breaks his ankle.
Yeah.
And he's out. I'm sorry again. I'm a Jamal Murray guy. You should be suspended for the rest of the series. You have to show, or at least a game,
Yeah.
because you have to show this is unacceptable and can never, ever, ever be done again by anyone.
I was going to say this is a situation where Adam Silver has to kind of bring the hammer down on this one. And, it might seem a little egregious, but I agree with you. You got to set a standard. You got to draw a line in the sand that you can't have things like this happen, especially not in a playoff series. Millions of people watching. You can't make it seem like the inmates are running the asylum.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
It just is honest to God, unacceptable. If you just want to make it one game, because right now they're down 2-0. Denver lost 2 games at home. You were talking about getting boat race last night.
Right.
On your home court. So, yeah.
That was a lot of their lowest totals of the entire season.
What happened to them last night, it's like they've never, ever played a team that plays defense against them. And they played the T-Wolves last year.
Right.
It's mind-numbing watching how Denver is like deer in the headlights in this series against Minnesota. But give the T-Wolves credit. Young crew, they've smacked Denver twice now. So if you suspend Jamal Murray for Game 3, Denver's season could be over. Oh, well, you shouldn't have threw a water bottle on the court, a hot water bottle. That's just, sorry, that's craziness. And last night in the Knicks-Pacers game, look, the Pacers lost this game because they don't play defense. The Knicks, when you shoot, 54% from the floor, 48% from 3, get to the line 26 times, hit almost 90% of your free throws. Indiana lost because they couldn't stop the Knicks offensively. Let's get that out of the way now.
Right.
But the officials didn't help in the last couple of minutes.
And they admitted their faults. Then there was the rolling screen. They got called as well. And, by the letter of the law, is it a penalty? Sure. But, man, that's a tough thing to determine a playoff. Not a playoff series overall, but a big playoff game.
Here's the one thing I understand. You don't want games to be stopped constantly to going to the review, and I get how it drives people crazy. But the idea you couldn't review that play in a tie game, it's 115, Tyler. Indiana legitimately gets a steal.
Yeah.
It should be Pacers ball with a chance to take the lead, I believe inside a minute, 115. To call a kick there, which, by the way, I don't know how you got a kick with the ball going the hand. The hand and the foot look a lot different.
They are.
So how you missed that call is beyond me. And the fact you can't go review that
makes it worse.
Is asinine. And that screen, I'm sorry, he moved like a centimeter, Miles Turner. That's a no call, man. That is a flat-out no call. Again, Indiana lost this game because they didn't play D when they needed to play D, but the officials did not help out at all last night. All right, so we'll get back into this. Tyler has an interesting interview we're going to get to next. He did yesterday on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. What's trending at 2 here on the game? All right, so Tyler, yesterday on the Extra Point, you interviewed a guy a lot smarter than you and I put together.
Yeah, this is Mitt Winter. He's a sports NIL attorney out of Kansas City, and I asked him about several things going on in the world right now with the changes of NIL and the future of the college football model, and we'll jump right into that conversation from yesterday. Talking all things about the future of college sports and the new models that could be on the horizon. I want to welcome back in for another session on this show. Talked to him back at the end of January. Mitt Winter, who is a college athletics attorney out of Kansas City, covering all things relating to NIL and sports law. Great follow on Twitter at Winter Sports Law. Stays on top of everything going on in the world of NIL. First of all, Mr. Winter, appreciate your time. Once again this morning, a lot has transpired since last time you and I talked a couple of months ago. I want to start off with this because this House versus NCAA case, which is set to go to court very, very soon, the writing seems to be on the wall that the NCAA is going to lose, and I think the public perception on that has been there for a while. But the NCAA itself seems to be well aware of that, which is why things are starting to move of these potential new models being implemented and these settlements and all that kind of stuff. At what point, in your opinion, did you think do you think the NCAA finally came around to seeing they weren't going to be able to win this case?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, guys. I think they've, probably for a while now realized that this case was very, very problematic for them. And I think the real issue came for them when the court certified the case as a class action, which made the potential damages in the case estimated somewhere between $4 and $5 billion if they go to trial and lose. And obviously, they'd like to avoid that if possible. So I think they've known that this case has presented a big issue to the current model of college athletics for a while. And settlement talks definitely heated up after that class certification decision. And from reporting last week from ESPN and Yahoo, sounds like those settlement talks are really heating up, and potentially there could be a settlement later this year. So that settlement will lead to a different model than the one we have now, which would include revenue sharing payments from schools to athletes.
So before we dive into that new model, let's say that these settlements weren't worked out. This thing did go to court. NCAA ends up losing. They do have to pay that between $4 and $5 billion to these athletes as a part of this class action lawsuit. I mean, what would be the fallout of that? Would there even be an NCAA at the end of it? Like, what would happen if these settlements weren't on the table?
Yeah, it's a good question. Some people have said that could bankrupt the NCAA if they have to pay that money, but I think they would somehow find the money. The settlement that's being talked about, the money is going to be paid by the NCAA. The damages portion is not going to be between $4 and $5 billion. It's going to be a smaller number than that. It's still going to be a large number, but the conferences and the schools are taking a hit there because the money that they traditionally receive from the NCAA is going to be reduced over a 10-year period to help pay for the damages payments as part of the settlement, at least what's being discussed now. So if they did go to trial and did have to pay that between $4 and $5 billion, they would do something similar. The schools would just be taking a bigger hit over that 10 years.
And talking to Mitt Winter, a college athletics attorney out of Kansas City, on the future of college sports. And I've been talking about, Ross Dellinger's reporting and several others that have been on top of this. These conversations of this new model that could be on the horizon as soon as potentially 2025. So just a little over a year away. Some very important votes coming up here very, very soon. What are the hurdles, and what all goes into completely shifting the model of college sports that we've known for well over 100 years into what is being talked about?
Yeah, so the settlement that's being talked about now really has three components. The first is that damages component that we were discussing, and that's a backwards-looking number. So the claims there are from some current and former college athletes who were not able to monetize their NIL before the rules changed on July 1, 2021. So they're claiming damages for the NIL payments that they would have received in the past if the rules had not prevented them from receiving those payments, and that includes all Division I athletes at Power 5 schools. So that's how that number gets so big. So beyond that damages backwards-looking part of the case, there's two forward-looking parts as well. One that hasn't been discussed as much as some of the revenue-sharing parts is it would eliminate the limits on the number of scholarships that Power 4 schools can give to their athletes. So, right now in sports like baseball and some other ones, you can't give a full scholarship to every athlete on the roster. I think baseball, it's like 11.6 scholarships divided amongst the whole team. So this settlement would get rid of those limits so they could give a full scholarship to every player on the baseball team and other teams right now that aren't allowed full scholarships for the whole roster. So that's another expense that schools will be taking on. And then the part that's been talked about a lot and a big difference from the current model is the revenue sharing component. So that part of the settlement would allow schools to make direct NIL payments to their athletes. And that number that could be paid out per year to all of the school's athletes would be capped under the terms that are being discussed right now. The number that's been talked about is between $17 and $22 million per year for all of the school's athletes, and they're basing that off of the average athletics revenue at the P4 level, and I think it works out to around 20% of that average revenue is how they're landing on that $17 to $22 million figure. So obviously that would be a big change from the current model where schools and conferences, neither of them are allowed to directly share revenue or make NIL payments to their athletes.
So with revenue sharing with athletes, there would have to be some kind of representation for the athletes as a whole, unionizing, or however you may want to phrase it. Now, every state is different when it comes to union rules for state employees at that point in time, because that's what they would be for the respective state universities. But what are the hangups there, and are there workarounds with this that could apply specifically only to college athletics?
Yeah, so when we talk about that revenue sharing cap that's being talked about as part of the settlement, it's really replacing the current cap on NIL payments from schools to athletes, which is 0, and moving it to a higher cap. So you're still going to have some antitrust issues there. So there's either two ways to deal with that to make the cap that they want to create immune from antitrust law. The first way is for athletes to be employees, and then they can collectively bargain that cap and other terms of their employment with schools. But as you mentioned, there are some issues with that. Some states don't allow public employees to unionize. So it's possible that some college athletes, if they're employees of their school, would not be able to unionize and collectively bargain.
It's going to be crazy and interesting and wild as we get to whatever we're going to, which is some kind of collectively bargained world of college athletics. There are a lot of hoops to jump through midwinter, though. That was good stuff.
Yeah, he's a great follow on Twitter. Again, at Winter Sports Law. If you're not already following him, he is on top of all of this. So whatever the most latest and pertinent information is, he's got thoughts and opinions on it. And we're definitely going to keep him on hand because this is changing by the day.
We're going to need him. Oh, today's the 7th of May.
Greatest day in the history of the world.
Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. That is next on the halftime show on the Game. And you can also hear us anywhere. All you do is just download that 107.5 The Game app, iTunes, Google Play Store, and you can listen to the game anywhere you get your cell service. Very simple, very easy. So again, iTunes, Google Play, just search 107.5 The Game. Also, Craft Beer Card is back. $360 value. You have 12 different craft beer locations. You can spend $30 at each place. That equals $360. But instead of paying $360 for it, just pay $79. Just go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals. All right, greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. On this day in 2021, Tyler Head, Wade Miley, the Cincinnati Reds, tossed a no-hitter, 3-0 against the Cleveland Indians. I got a list for you real quick, my man.
Okay.
Well, Wade Miley, look, solid starting pitcher, ERA career right around 4, fielding independent pitching number right around 4. Again, okay pitcher, had some good years, had some A years. He's all right. Give you some names. Bud Smith, Anibal Sanchez, Jonathan Sanchez, no relation, I don't think. Clay Buchholz, Jose Jimenez. You know who those guys are?
Who's that?
Dudes who have thrown no-hitters.
Okay.
Got another list for you.
Sure.
Roger Clemens,
Yeah.
Greg Maddux,
Yeah.
Steve Carlton,
Yep.
Pedro Martinez.
Also guys that have thrown no-hitter. Or they've not thrown no-hitters.
Never have thrown no-hitters.
Wow.
And now again, Randy Johnson's thrown a no-hitter. Nolan Ryan had 100 of them.
Yep.
Randy Johnson had a couple. I mean, there have been Hall of Famers who have thrown no-hitters, but it's so odd that guys like Bud Smith, has thrown a no-hitter, but Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, guys like that, Greg Maddux, have never, ever, Mike Mussina is another one, never threw a no-hitter. Never, those type of pitchers never threw no-hitters, but you get other guys who did, they just have a day.
That's kind of one of those funky things about baseball because, some things just kind of fall in line for certain guys on certain days. And yes, Nolan Ryan had a ridiculous amount of them, so that was more of a consistent thing over the course of his career. But sometimes you just have one of those games where you're just on fire and you go out there and, throw really well. I mean, Max Fried was on his way to a no-hitter last week for the Braves against the Mariners. They took him out of 6 innings because his pitch count got so high, and the Braves ended up losing that game, unfortunately. But it's I don't want to say it's not is it as rare anymore because pitching's so good now.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of no-hitters here in the last so many years where you went like, well, there's been a couple years where you go, another one?
Yeah.
Really?
It's doesn't quite seem as like this unicorn of a thing as like it once was because, again, guys weren't throwing 100 mile an hour at the clip that they do now. So maybe that's why it was a little bit more rarefied back then. But, I don't know. I just feel like it's a little bit more prevalent to where when somebody does it, you're like, that's cool.
Yeah, the perfect game is still the unicorn.
Sure.
The perfect game is still the tough thing. But yeah, a no-hitter in the last so many years, it's been like, okay, that's cool.
Right.
What else is on TV?
Right.
And it used to be, wow, a no-hitter?
It's not the lead story on SportsCenter anymore.
Oh, no, not at all. All right, also on this day, in 2010, the U.S. loses to Germany 2-1 in the opening game of the World Hockey Championships. This game was held in Germany at Veltins Arena.
Okay.
77,803 people were at this game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait. An arena that holds 77,000 people?
Ordinarily the home of a German soccer team.
What's the name of this arena again?
Veltins, Veltins Arena.
Veltins.
In Germany. Almost 78,000 people were at this hockey game. That's craziness.
So, all right, it's an arena from the standpoint that it has a roof on it, but that's a stadium.
It's a soccer arena. Yeah, it's a stadium.
What's it? Arenas to me, I think basketball arena.
Oh, I think basketball arena, hockey, or a true hockey arena.
Yeah,
yes.
Intimate venue, max, 15, 20,000 seats.
Not 85,000. Well, they call it arena because I guess it's got a roof on it to make it look like an arena. I don't know.
I guess so. But yeah, that doesn't qualify as arena in my book.
Could you see if it was only seeing 20,000, everybody sitting on each other's lap?
Maybe.
Now, that would have been a fun thing to talk about.
I was going to say, now we're talking about setting some records here.
Exactly. Like all those dudes stuffed in a VW Bug.
Yeah.
When you see those pictures, or everybody stuffed in a phone booth to set a world record, a Guinness Book of World Records.
Exactly.
That would have been fun. Giacomo, 50-1 shot, won the Kentucky Derby on this day in 2005. A 70-1 shot, finished second. So you had a 50-1 shot in Giacomo to win the Derby. Closing argument, a 70-1 shot, finished second. A Fleet Alex finished third. That trifecta must have been crazy.
We had a pretty exciting finish this past weekend at the Derby. Mystic Dan
I know.
by a nose.
By a nostril hair. We had the same thing at the NASCAR race.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was a crazy weekend.
Good weekend
sports.
for finishes.
Yes, it was. Hey, Wayne Gretzky scored
There he
his
is
100th and 101st playoff goals in a 7-4 win over Vancouver this day in 1993. The Denver Nuggets were down 0-2. The 8th seed Denver Nuggets in 1994 were down 0-2 to the 1 seed Seattle Supersonics in the NBA Western Conference playoffs. Nuggets then won 3 straight and were the first number 8 to beat a number 1 seed in 1994. I believe that's a game. That's a highlight where Dikembe Mutombo was laying on the court screaming, holding a basketball.
Yeah.
Also in this day, NBA, 1989. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers in the late 80s had Mark Price, Brad Daugherty, Ron Harper. They were looked at, Hot Rod Williams, they were looked at as the future dynasty in the NBA, especially coming out of the Eastern Conference.
Sure.
1989, they were playing Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Bulls have the ball. Cavs are up by 1. Game 5, deciding game of this playoff series. Jordan gets the ball. He's being guarded by a good defensive player named Craig Elo, and Jordan knocks down a jumper right over Elo's fingers. Bulls win the series. Bulls go on to become a dynasty, and the Cavaliers go this day in 1989.
So if that doesn't happen, we never hear about the Bulls.
Let's say Jordan, that shot rims in and out, and Cleveland moves on.
How different is the history of
I don't
basketball
know.
after that?
I don't know.
Probably not much different.
Maybe not, but
that's at least one.
it's an interesting story.
Yeah, that's at least one for Cleveland.
Because that Bulls team went on and got beat by the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals, if my memory serves me.
Right.
And by the way, that Bulls team was coached by not Phil Jackson,
Okay.
if my memory serves me. Doug Collins.
Okay.
I believe that Bulls team won 52 games maybe, and was coached by Doug Collins. I think. Again, my memory off the top of my head isn't as good as it used to be. But I believe that 1989 Bulls team, I'm pretty sure it was coached by Doug Collins. I think won 50-ish, 52 games.
Hold on, I'll tell you in
But
about
Cleveland
2
was a
seconds.
60-some win juggernaut. And I believe that was Eastern Conference semis. I could be wrong. Could be in the first round. But again, that shot is iconic because Elo just crumbles. Elo crumbles right on the court.
Doug Collins.
Doug Collins was the head coach.
They were 47-35.
Okay, I missed it by 5 games. So they were a 47-win team, and Cleveland was really good.
Yes.
Cleveland was supposed to be, again, everybody thought with all that young talent, the Cavaliers are going to be the next big-time team in the East. And it felt like that loss crushed them. I forget, they were like a 60-some win team.
They were 57-25.
Okay, 57. I missed it by 3.
You're close.
Again, top of my head doesn't work the way as it used to, but that's a 10-win difference between those two teams.
Yep.
And Cleveland was favored to win that series. And nobody thought the Bulls would end up being the Bulls that the Bulls ended up being. Just saying. And I don't know, in 1989, I don't believe the Bulls had Scottie Pippen yet.
Let me check.
I don't think they were quite built to be the dynasty they became when they beat the Lakers in, was it 91?
No, Scotty was on that team.
He was?
Yes.
Okay. Again, the top of my head doesn't work the way as good as it used to. So they did have Grant and Pippen and Jordan.
Now, Phil Jackson was an assistant coach on that team.
Yeah, because Collins got let go and they elevated Phil to the head coaching gig.
Okay.
Man, just the cobwebs, Tyler. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm just not in the right house.
That's what men's clinic's here for.
Yeah, I got to go. Got to go. But that was, I'll never forget that Cavalier team was stacked. It really was. They had a ton of talent. And the Bulls they ripped their heart out. Or Jordan ripped their heart out.
As Jordan would do to many teams.
Yes, he would. All right, it's the greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We'll get in here. Our text of the hour, 803-404-6100. Firehouse Subs brings it to us. That's next on the halftime show right here on The Game. Alrighty. Time to check out our Firehouse Sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. And also a Firehouse Sub email of the hour, too. So go ahead. What do you got?
That's a first, for sure. So nameless texter weighs in and says, if the goal is to get to a bowl, don't schedule another Power 5 game in addition to Clemson. Well, you're in luck. They didn't.
That's right.
You have Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford, and Clemson. That is your non-conference slate this year. Is that the sexiest schedule? It's not, but you should theoretically have at least 3 guaranteed wins there.
That should get you 3.
Again, if you're trying to get back to a bowl game, that checks the box halfway at least.
Yeah. And then you have to pull 3 wins out of the SEC, and then you get back to a bowl game, and you feel better.
Pretty much.
All right, here's Dean.
All right.
Send me an email, and I appreciate this, Dean. Thank you very much. Everyone thinks that the Gamecocks took a step back in football last year. Going into the season, I just wanted us not to get blown out of any games. The fact that the Gamecocks were in every game going to the fourth quarter was a step forward. Yes, there were disappointing games where there was no running game, and the offense could never get going and was disappointing at times. Even during those 11-win seasons, there was always at least one unforeseen blowout. We're definitely heading in the right direction. Go Gamecocks.
That's what we call reasonable expectations.
Yes. And, it is interesting. Again, look, everybody has their own expectation level.
Sure.
And Dean's expectation level was simple. Don't get blown out.
Don't make me have to turn the game off before it's over.
Yes. Set me up where I can watch all 4 quarters, fellas. And look, if that's your expectation level last year, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were in every game.
For the most part.
I mean, the Tennessee game became a blowout.
But
yeah, the Missouri game, the Tennessee game. But, the Missouri game was funny. Remember, they kept kicking field goals.
that was a weird game.
It was a very weird game.
Weird things happen in Como.
It felt like a blowout, but they really were in it in the second half because
Yeah,
they were kicking a ton of field
If
goals.
they could have gone down and scored a touchdown, it was a whole new ball game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do that.
Because
but-
remember, Missouri came out on fire.
Yeah. And, Cody Schrader just ran for another touchdown.
He diced South Carolina. The Tennessee game was a blowout. But you were in games.
You led Georgia at halftime.
You led Georgia at halftime. You had the ball in North Carolina territory the entire second half of the opener. You lost to Clemson despite the fact that you held them without an offensive touchdown. You lost the Florida game you should have won.
I mean, the A&M game, you were in it at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
I mean, you were hanging.
Yeah.
And to Dean's point, you were hanging besides the Tennessee game.
Sure.
You were pretty much hanging in every game in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I mean, I get it. And, look, that was Dean's expectation.
Sure.
I'm sure there's people in the fan base that have a higher expectation. But you know what's interesting, Tyler, is there's some who have a lower.
Yeah.
It's just expectation, especially for the Gamecock football program, it's a very interesting dynamic.
It is. Spurrier proved you could win at a high level here.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple 10-win seasons, go to good bowl games, all that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's impossible.
No.
It's not easy to do, and the SEC has gotten harder since then.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, here comes 2 new members that are just going to make it that much tougher.
Yeah, one won 10 games, the other one to the college football playoff.
Yeah. I would say outside of the football on the field, you're recruiting well. Obviously, you're good in the transfer portal. You're doing what you need to do to hopefully take that next step of being in that top tier of the SEC. How far you have to get to that, I don't know, but you're at least doing the things off the field to make that possible.
Jay always says his bar is 8 wins.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
And I don't just say that because, Jay works here. I think that's a reasonable bar to have because Spurrier showed you can win here at a high level.
Yes.
For a consistent period of time. Remember, Spurrier averaged about 10 wins a year for 5 years.
Yep.
So it wasn't one fluky 10-win season or one fluky 11-win season, then you went back to winning 5. It was a competitive football program to a high level for 5 years. It just shows you get the right guy in place, you can do this.
Well, a guy that's shown you he can win big games because he's done it before. Didn't go his way this past season, but we still have such I know it's weird to say, a small sample size of Shane Beamer as a head coach.
Right.
It's only been 3 years.
And you saw a huge win over Tennessee, a top 10 team with college football playoff aspirations, a huge win at Clemson, a team at that point had college football playoff aspirations. So you got 2 gigantic W's. And you had that 8-win year in season 2 of your tenure. And I look back on those 2 years and how the program exceeded expectations. Last year, I'm not going to sit here and say it was all because of injuries. I'm not going to do that. The defense wasn't injured. The defense had issues up until November. Offensively, there were injuries. That offensive line, it crippled the offense. That 5-7, I feel like you do have to give some credence to the injury factor up front on offense.
Sure.
With the line. But the defense up until November was a problem. It was an absolute problem. But I think the what Jay looks at is an 8-win bar. You want to get to that point where you're a consistent 8-win type of team, and every now and then you pop a season, it's even better than that.
Right.
I do believe that's realistic here. And look, Shane Beamer, I feel like despite last year where everyone, even Shane, was disappointed, I feel like this thing's going in the right direction with Shane. And we'll see in year 4 where it's going. All right, we are done. Fine job, Tyler. Post-game show with Jay and Elijah coming up next on The Game.